Alderman Trembling.
Here.
Alderwoman Gillespie.
Here.
Alderwoman Tanguma.
Here.
Alderman Thomasini.
Here.
Alderwoman Matawala.
Here.
We have a quorum. We'll all stand for Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item number 3 on the agenda, Mayor's comment on commencement of services by Tiger Sanitation to city residences and, city residents and businesses. As everyone probably knows by now, because they got their newsletter, that there's going to be a bulk pickup on the March 19th. What everyone needs to understand, you have to be a Tiger customer in order for for the pickup to occur. So I think there might be some confusion in the city as to that the city's doing that, but this is part of the fee that you pay to Tiger. So I just want to make sure everyone's clear on that. The second item to comment on has to do with a follow-up to the last meeting. And since there were a lot of new faces here today that probably didn't hear this last time, I'll read the original email that I received from Tiger Sanitation. This was received on February 3rd. It says, "Good afternoon, Mayor Ball. We received a call from Kathleen Rescio, board member, wanting a credit on her account due to the new service starting at Sandy Oaks. She was referencing the letter that was sent out to the residents, which stated the service to start on January 1st. She wanted a credit for January and February. As we both know, the service actually started on February 1st due to delays on Sandy Oaks. With that said, can you please let the board and the residents of Sandy Oaks know of this start date so that we do not receive any other calls of this nature? We are here to help in any way we can to ensure a smooth transition on the new contract. Please let us know of anything we can do. We did give credit to Kathleen for both January and February." That email, I had to have a conversation with Tiger to let them know that service did commence January 1st and that Ms. Rescio was not a board member. On February 15th, I received a follow-up email from Tiger Sanitation, and it is addressed, "Mayor Ball, we listened to the recorded phone call from Kathleen Rescio, and she did not state she was a board member. She stated she goes to all the meetings and keeps up with all the information for the city of Sandy Oaks. I got our CSR rep who took the call from Kathleen Rescio in regards to the credit, and she made the assumption she was a board member, probably because Kathleen said she is at all the city meetings. I wanted to be clear on this. I was in error when I commented that Kathleen was a board member. It was a mistake on my part, and I apologize for any confusion it may have caused. As I stated before, we are here to help in any way, so if there's anything you may need, please do not hesitate to ask." And before we start on item number 4, because we do have quite a few new faces here, I just want everyone to understand kind of how this part works. If you signed up to speak, you will be given 3 minutes to speak, but know that the council cannot respond to any comments that you make. You're free to make comments, but unless it's on the agenda, the council cannot address you. So with that, if you want to stay after the meeting and talk to council afterwards, you may do so. So first up would be Rebecca, is it Yowell?
Close. Vowel.
Vowel.
Consonant and a vowel.
Got you.
2 L's.
Okay.
Keep it simple. Hello everybody, how y'all doing? This is my first time, so I'm going to try to learn this really quick, really fast. My concern, and I don't know what's really on the agenda, I'm just going to throw it out there because I'll probably send an email to the mayor later and follow up with her and anybody else that wants to jump in. I'm at home, maybe way too long, 3 weeks now. And I've noticed that we got dogs doing the nasties out there. And that's the nicest way I can put it. Besides our pets needing their shots, if we ever can get volunteers to come in, we should, in the long term, think of the future, because it's not going to be a quick fix. We need to think about spay and neuter of our pets, controlling our pets in our properties, because I have everybody else's dog running through my yard. Okay, granted, my yard is 3 acres. Last week, I called the mayor because I was in the back of property. I heard a gunshot go off. Like always, I look towards the street. I see a black female lab, pregnant, running. I thought, well, let me close my gate. I don't need her running in my yard. By the time I got to the gate, she was on my right side, dead. A gunshot. Now, granted, she was pregnant. It was trash day. So God knows what she was doing. And of course, the guy down the street, he just waves at me. I'm like, really, dude? Come help me dig this hole. So basically, there was nobody there to pick it up. So of course, we improvised. My son and I, well, he dug the hole. I supervised. Also, just putting it out there because, like I said, I'll probably be emailing the mayor. We need some lights and walkways, if possible. I know it's too soon, too fast, but I have to save our kids somehow. Because it's dangerous, it's dark out there, and besides the dogs, I have a lot of coyotes and some javelinas. I've never been to the other side. I live off of Brook Oak, down Star Oak. So where I live, I see javelinas. Tracks of it. So we maybe get some lights and deter them, because I don't want to shoot in the dark, and I don't want my neighbors shooting in the dark. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize, this next name, I'm not sure who it is. Omar?
Spell it out.
I can't. Last name starts with an E. Second person to sign up.
What they want to talk about.
They want to talk about why is everything in English. I don't know that you can read the name. No, it's hard.
She wants to cancel that?
Oh, okay. Okay, next up is Vanessa Torres.
Yeah, I just have, hi, my name is Vanessa Torres. I just have just a simple question. I just want to ask, I don't know where's the limits of Sandy Oaks, and I just want to know from where to where it's the limits that we are in Sandy Oaks.
Where's what?
The city limits.
Oh,
There is a map on the website, and but it's basically Priest Road, Olive Waterwood. You'd have to look at the map to be very specific
So I'll find it
on the city website.
Okay.
Do you have an email for that?
An email?
An email address?
This on the newsletter
On the
is
newsletter?
the website. Mariana Magdalero, is that you?
Yes. Hi, my name is Mariana Magdalero. This is the first time for this meeting, and my question today is, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to ask for all these Hispanic ladies here as to how did y'all become elected in the position y'all in right now? I know that the news never says that every November y'all have elections, but it's been 2 years that I've been here in this area, and this is the first time I hear of this. So our question will be, and is, how did y'all get appointed in the position that y'all are in right now?
That's something to address after.
Okay,
We could
Do you want to stay
Oh.
and speak to one of the council members after the meeting? We can talk about that after. And-
oh, okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Don Hormachet.
Thank you, Mayor Ball. I just want to get a quick clarification if I could. I know on our animal control ordinance right now, if we trap the animal, it will be picked up, but whoever picks it up is going to send somebody a bill. And there is some question as to if it's the actual owner or whoever calls them to come and get the bill, come and get the dog. If you guys could get some clarification for us on that, I imagine you're going to have to get it from the other city involved, Elmendorf. But if you get a chance, and I would really like to know the answer to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Gary Bricken.
I have to come closer, I don't speak that loud.
Okay.
I don't hear it well either. My name is Gary Bricken. I've been a resident of this community for about 8.5 years. And thank you for the good work you did, especially the trash thing. I want to talk about the noise ordinance that you're crafting. It was my pleasure many years ago in California to be a technician for a man named John Hilliard, Dr. John Hilliard, who's the founder of modern acoustical engineering in this country. I'm not an engineer, I was just a technician, but I learned quite a bit. The creation of a viable noise ordinance is difficult. It's almost impossible because there's no universal standard as to what is allowed noise, be it from music, human activity, construction, machinery. What we can do is there's a sizable body of information about what the ambient noise level is in communities like ours. The noise level here is lower than it would be in San Antonio or Detroit. But we have to deal with that as a separate way of looking at the whole noise issue. You can have spikes in noise as long as the 24-hour average is within the limits that you set. The challenge here is we have a very low ambient noise level, and the best efforts probably are aimed at creating an ordinance based on time rather than specific decibel levels, which is how noise is measured. And we're a working class community, although I don't work actually, but most people do, and they get up very early. So it's important that we have limits during the week that might be lower than limits on weekends, even though there are a lot of people here that work during the weekend too. Plus we have a lot of school kids who need to get their sleep. I mention this because in my neighborhood, we're in the back end of town, sometimes they run their radios and machinery and all kinds of stuff 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And we need to really get a handle on that. The importance of regulation cannot be understated. It can lead to all kinds of community problems, believe me. Do the best you can and let time and feedback trim the ordinance to fit the community. And just keep in mind that no matter what you do, the truth is that a noise ordinance is only as good as the willingness of the people in the community to follow the guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Kathleen Resio.
Hello, everyone. I have a statement, more like a speech I'd like to make to City Council. Mayor Ball, aldermen, alderwomen, city attorney, and other city employees. I am speaking today, Thursday, March 10, 2016, in regards to the last meeting held on February 11, 2016. At the meeting held on 2/11/2016, it was publicly announced that by Mayor Ball that I, Ms. Resio, had contacted Tiger Sanitation to receive appropriate credits on my bill. It was said by Mayor Ball that I, Ms. Resio, misrepresented myself in quotes as a board member of Sandy Oaks. It was then said It was then said by Mayor Ball that I, Ms. Resio, proceeded to threaten Tiger Sanitation if I did not receive what I called for, and that I would have 300 residents cancel their accounts with Tiger Sanitation and take their trash to the dump. This speech is so that I, Ms. Resio, can defend myself and my family's good name. To also let the citizens of this community and my neighbors know that the information Mayor Ball spoke about last meeting was false. Upon hearing the accusations made against me, I contacted Tiger Sanitation. Unfortunately, they record all conversations for quality assurance purposes. And after thorough investigation upon my request, Tiger supervisors reviewed the audio of my calls and verified that I, Ms. Resio, made no such claims or statements that Mayor Ball accused me of. On 2/15/2016, an agent of Tiger Sanitation sent Mayor Ball and myself a copy of an email clarifying Tiger's communication to Mayor Ball was a mistake, and they apologized for any confusion it had caused. This email exonerated the allegations made about me. The point is not that it was merely a miscommunication. The point is that Mayor and the public officials are ethically held to a higher standard than ordinary citizens for which they represent. I recommend that any communication received by the city about or from residents of this community not be publicly divulged so that the citizens can feel safe from retribution and public humiliation as I have. It should be important to our elected and hired officials to assure citizens that they can come to them in confidence. I suggest that our officials who have already not done so consider attending ethics training on how to conduct themselves in public office so they can learn how to keep peace and harmony amongst the citizens of this community. I reference local government ethics programs by Robert Weschler. In conclusion, this humiliation directed to me and my family could have been avoided had Mayor Ball come to me personally. And to quote Mayor Ball, a wise person once told her, "A closed mouth gets fed. If you don't ask, you don't know." And to continue, perhaps Mayor Ball should have hindered her own advice publicly before publicly defaming me and my family's good name, making us subject to public hatred, ridicule, impeaching our honesty, integrity, virtue, and reputation. On February 16th, I sent Mayor Ball a certified letter upon the advice of my attorney. The letter quoted the laws that were violated against me. The letter gave you 14 days upon receipt of certified letter to retract audio, apologize both publicly and in writing for the slanderous allegations made against me. This deadline has come and gone. I will pursue any action necessary against all officials in attendance on February 11, 2016's meeting who either allowed, approved, or failed to correct Mayor Ball of her statements against or about me. I feel this is necessary to clear my name and my family's name and our integrity. Thank you.
Next up is Carlos Resio.
Are we getting an apology or not from the Honorable Mayor Ball? That's all.
Apparently not.
Be careful what you say to city council, please.
Okay. Item number 5 on the agenda is the, wait a minute, financial report. Oh, no, did you just?
I don't think you have one, no.
Oh, I don't have one.
I ran out of paper.
The income and expense will be reported by the city clerk, Charlotte Rabe.
Okay, our beginning balance was $200,227.03. Our expenditures were $12,555.05. Our income was $61,906.63, leaving us with a balance of $249,578.61.
The item on February 12th from Texas Comptroller, that's sales tax, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you were reaching.
No. Okay, item 6 on the agenda, this is the consent agenda. We have 3 items on here. If the first one is discuss and consider approval of the minutes from February 11th, 2016 regular city council meeting. Number 2 is approve the payment of invoice 1102 from Casan and Ortiz PC in the amount of $4,066.03. And number 3 is to approve reimbursement to Mayor Ball for printing services in the amount of $143.67. If there's any item on this agenda that any council member would like pulled for separate consideration, we will do that.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion by Alderman Tremblay to approve the consent agenda. Do we have a second?
Second the motion.
We have a second by Alderwoman Gillespie. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I
All right.
was late.
Motion carries. Thank you, Alderman Thomasini. Okay, item 7 is to discuss, consider, and approve a resolution selecting a newspaper of record for fiscal year 2016. You know, as with most things new, we learn something new every day. And apparently under Government Code 52.004, the city has to select a public newspaper of record every fiscal year. So that's what this is to entertain options from the council for our newspaper of record.
I'm happy with Wilson County News.
Honestly, I think cost-wise, it's the most effective way. The paper is available at the Valero. I believe financially, we just have too much to publish to be going to San Antonio Express and it's too expensive. So I agree. Wilson County News.
Yes.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion then.
I'll make a motion. We remain with Wilson County News as our official newspaper of public record.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Tremblay to consider and approve a resolution selecting Wilson County News as the newspaper of record for our fiscal year 2016. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Alderwoman Karen Tanguma has seconded the motion. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item 8. Discuss, consider, and approve an interlocal agreement with San Antonio Metropolitan Health. Something was brought to my attention in the last couple of weeks during a discussion with a representative from San Antonio Metropolitan Health. And because we're a new city, we were not included in the original interlocal agreements that were put in place. And the purpose of the interlocal agreement is in the event of a natural or biological hazard, Zika is what prompted this. The Bexar County has an agreement with San Antonio Metropolitan Health. Bexar County does as well. And therefore, what happens is San Antonio Metropolitan Health would become the, I don't want to say a hospital, but the organization of record. They would receive additional funding from the Centers for Disease Control and the, not Homeland Security, who's the other one?
CDC.
No, it's not Homeland Security.
Center for Disease Control?
No, it's a security agency. But so what they do is they would be the point for our area, our county, if you will, and would be taking direction at the national level on how to address certain things, whether it be containment, treatment. I mean, they're not actually treating people, but they would be containing and isolation items such as that. So Zika is what prompted this discussion, and that's when we realized that we did not have an interlocal agreement in place with San Antonio Metropolitan Health. So that is the purpose of this. It falls also into the Bexar County Office of Emergency Management, the Kyle Coleman group where we went for our ICS training. They are joined together during these efforts, you know, should something come about. So they've addressed West Nile virus in the past, Ebola. Not that we had Ebola here, but when that was an elevated risk, they were staging for that. So that's the whole purpose of this interlocal agreement.
Would this also take into consideration preventative measures? In other words, like when we
Yes.
get vector control, they come out and be spraying from mosquitoes,
So here's
stuff like that.
Here's what I was told about that. Because of HIPAA, let's say that someone in our community was affected by Zika. They, along with the Centers for Disease Control and National Institute, you know, all the organizations that would be involved in that would be doing whatever they needed to do, and doing the vectoring is exactly one of the things they would do. But they have to be sensitive to not identify the individual. So it would be a very broad treatment.
I lived in San Antonio for quite a few years, and I know if you reported to the city standing water, they would come out and spray areas where there was standing water that would be attractive for mosquitoes. So that's where the question was leading.
Yes.
Whether if we had standing water, and I know we don't get a lot of standing water out here, but I'm sure there are areas that it does occur.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just, I mean, it's a good idea to do it. I'm just wondering what's included with it, what other services we may get along with it.
There is not anything specific.
If it's just a catastrophic.
It is catastrophic, yes. In the event that there's elevated threats, then they would.
And they have a procedure that they follow?
Oh, absolutely.
Protocol,
Yes.
so we just go with that protocol.
Yes.
Well, Mayor, I just want to comment on this ordinance, the proposed one references Exhibit A, the interlocal agreement.
Mhm.
I don't know if they sent you a copy specific to.
I don't have that
Yes.
specific.
So the approval may, or the proposed ordinance may need to remove that Exhibit A and just give you authority to execute one or bring it back to council next time. Since we don't have that.
We don't have it.
The council doesn't know what it's going to approve, or doesn't have what's going to approve yet.
Okay.
And the ordinance proposed one does give you authority to execute it, maybe the negotiation and execution.
Right. They have a standard. They have a standard ILA. Yeah.
So and I guess the copy that they have with other entities may be used as a sample, or for the council to stand here.
Yes. That's what I'm thinking, because apparently they signed all of these at the same time with all of the other entities. So for consistency, it would be. Okay. So what is your recommendation on this one?
Just to give you authority to execute the agreement on behalf of the city, consistent with the district's agreement with other cities around the area. Because I don't know if we'd be in a position to really negotiate the document.
Correct.
It's really just their document.
Correct.
What we approve.
Take it as it is, or
Well, but she's saying to remove attachment A, which we don't have.
And then reference the agreement that they have, a similar agreement with other areas.
take out the last word.
Do you want me to, you want to just take this one down and let me try to get the agreement and then we'll execute it at the same time?
Forward, all this green stuff, really. We shouldn't keep prolonging. I'd make a motion that we,
Well, we need to be very clear what you're going to propose here, because there's some amendments on this one that we didn't make.
well, as the attorney stated, we'll give the mayor the authority to coordinate the ordinance with the county, so that it is reflected in the ILA with other cities. And we'll approve it. I mean, if you want to postpone until the next meeting. Suggestions?
What do you think?
It really doesn't matter, we can Just as long as it gets done, it doesn't matter whether it's.
Sorry, to execute one that mirrors other,
So this last paragraph here, we're going to amend this.
yes.
Okay, so we're going
So
to
the
scratch
motion is
this.
to give the mayor the authority to coordinate the ordinance, the agreement of the ILA with the county for an ILA.
It's not with the county, it's with San Antonio
It's the city of San Antonio.
Metro Health. Okay, we have a motion?
But you might want to say it loud enough.
So the motion is to give the mayor the authority to coordinate with the city of San Antonio an ILA to create the ordinance for the designation of the health authority between Bear County, city of San Antonio, and the city of San Diego. It actually reads that. It gives you the
It
authority.
does give our authority,
Right.
there's no actual contract.
No, I understand that.
So we get scratches because we don't have it.
Right, so we're just scratching through the, okay. Okay, we have a motion from Alderman Tremblay to authorize the mayor to execute an interlocal agreement for designation of health authority between Bear County, the city of San Antonio, and the city of Sandy Oaks, and authorizing the mayor to execute such agreement on behalf of the city. Do we have a second? Alderwoman Karen Tanguma has seconded. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Rebecca?
I was translating on what's going on, that,
Oh, okay.
what's going on. Because
Perfect.
we're getting the help from San Antonio. You know, we're getting that approval, so they're not understanding what's going on there, so I'm trying to explain.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, item number 9 on the agenda is to discuss, consider, and approve a franchise agreement with CenterPoint Energy. This was brought by Alderman Tremblay and Gillespie.
Okay, basically, I ran into the CenterPoint Energy guys. They were out here doing a connection for one of my kids. And they actually are brought it up. They're very interested in expanding their service in San Diego. As it is right now, they have very limited service within just the Waterwood subdivision area. So they actually have a standard agreement, franchise agreement that they utilize with other cities. So rather than create one prior to, I do have a point of contact. We've spoken, and it's basically, we have them send their standard agreement over to our attorney, let them look at it. I think you drafted one already.
Not the agreement, the ordinance approving the agreement.
Oh, okay. But, yeah, if approved, then we'll just have them forward over their standard agreement for us to look at. I'm not sure if they're even, if their franchise fees included in their agreement. Like I say, it's very limited service. I think for now, it would just be an opportunity for a lot of people who want gas, who want natural gas. I know for cooking, a lot of people prefer to have gas. You know, I know I'd rather have gas, but we weren't able to get it when we moved down here. But I think it's more efficient as well. So I just think it's a win for the city and for the residents. Anybody who wants to switch over may have an opportunity to switch over, and they do provide up to I think they set up to 200 feet of line free. After that, the customer pays, and it's very reasonable. I think my daughter ended up paying like $70 or something like that to hook up, whereas trying to get like Bell Propane to come out and do a setup, it ran like $1,200. So I just think it's a win for anybody who would be interested in utilizing the natural gas.
Can you talk about the franchise agreement itself? Is this a franchise fee?
It would just be that we allow them to come in, and they don't tear up streets. We spoke about that. They tunnel down under the streets. They don't tear up streets. So it's, I guess that's a positive thing to look at. I think the franchise agreement would just mean that they would be the sole providers. That they would have pretty much the rights to provide service without letting anyone else come in. We'd have to look at the agreement and see exactly what it is, but it is a standard agreement to have with other cities.
So there's no fee to the city? There's no...
Not that I'm aware of, no.
So that's under our property?
They would dig to your property line, then, yeah, right, like if they had to cross the street, if the connection was on the other side, because it only goes on, like on Waterwood paths, it's only on one side of the street, so they bore under the street rather than, I'm sorry.
So we're not talking about, is that a franchise
Well, that's
agreement?
what I was thinking, why would we enter into it, or why would we just be entering into it if there wasn't a fee? Or why would we give them franchise if there wasn't a fee associated
Well,
with using the streets and
I
whatever
mean,
utilities?
we need to look at it and see what exactly what they're, I'm not sure what is in their franchise agreement with other cities, I'm not sure. If we agree to enter into one, we don't have to, we're not going to sign an agreement unless it's approved.
Same thing.
We're just basically saying we'll do an ordinance to establish.
Oh.
If we approve to go that route, then we can go ahead and start the dialogue with them.
Do you know, I know that they are the provider, there's only one provider that I'm aware of. So as a city, is that our option to open it up to competition?
You can. However many, you would get the additional fee when using the streets for other providers unless you have an exclusive agreement with the current one, which
Or utilities, so we can do that with utilities then? I think I'd like to see the agreement.
for example, Tiger has an exclusive agreement, but
Right.
so trash can be limited to them, but utilities, if there's no exclusive agreement, can be opened up.
See, I think I'm confused with the wording, calling it a franchise agreement as opposed to an exclusive contract. Because with a franchise agreement, I mean, we're either going to assess a fee.
Yeah, well, I guess it'd be an exclusive franchise agreement. That's
Okay.
why it's spoke of the exclusive contract, the exclusive franchise agreement for the use of the streets.
So basically, we give the city attorney the authority to pursue it or to request that they forward their agreement to us. At that point, we can approve or disapprove or accept or not.
I think it'd be better to look at it first.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm stating. So we would need to authorize, rather than, I'm sure the attorney doesn't just go out and look for things unless we tell her to, unless we request it.
Right.
So that's what the motion would be to authorize the city attorney to pursue a franchise agreement with Central Clean Energy, bring it back to the city council with further recommendation.
Okay. Anyone want to make a motion?
Oh, I'll make a motion that we give the city attorney the authority to look into the franchise agreement. We want to see it first.
Wait a minute, we're not there yet. Okay, would you say that one more time, please?
Well, David said
You're making a motion.
to have allow the city attorney to contact Central Point Energy to find out what their franchise agreement is, the wording, and before we agree to it, we would like to see it.
Okay. We have a motion from Alderman Tremblay, I'm sorry, let me start over. We have a motion from Alderman Thomasini to authorize the city attorney to contact CenterPoint Energy to review their franchise contract. Do we have a second? Is that Alderwoman Manawala? We have a second by Alderwoman Manawala. We have any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Okay. Moving right along. Item 10. Discuss, consider, and approve a noise ordinance control for the, noise control ordinance for the city. And this was brought by Alderwoman Tanguma and Alderwoman Gillespie.
Yes, I would like to discuss about considering a noise control ordinance for the city. We do have issues in our community about noise. It's been brought to my attention with calls from community members and, I'm serving myself, right? So we do have, it is considered a time, there's time considered daytime hours from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. and we do have some general guidelines to consider, considering feet and also where the noise is coming from. Is it a vehicle? Is it animals? And the maximum sound levels. Also looking at different decimal levels and also distance between properties. You have in daytime hours, you have 85 decibels and 70 decibels during the nighttime. Also distance between 50 feet properties for sound for maximum sound. And also it has an area in here that considers, which I thought was important, would be the health and well-being of the residents. Because when I did get calls, somebody had to drive away, from their home. Another one had to go lie down with a headache. The last time it happened, it lasted 6 hours without, relief for the neighbors. So I would like you to look at this and see if we have any discussion, areas of discussion.
Well, I think what's important for everybody to realize is that first up, it says that, it's not inconsistent with state law. So the ordinance follows state law, state guidelines. So I think that in itself should show to the citizens that we're looking out for their interest as applicable by state law. This is what we can enforce.
It is in line with other cities as well. We did compare city ordinances about noise, and we did see cities our size, what were they using, and that's how the ordinance draft was written up by me.
Would this keep people from using fireworks?
That is a separate ordinance.
There's a fireworks ordinance.
Well, I know, but I mean noise.
After 11 p.m., yes.
Does that also include?
Ma'am, you're not allowed to converse with the audience, sorry.
Then how are we supposed to figure out?
Well, you may speak to us afterwards, okay?
So they wouldn't be able to use fireworks after 11 p.m.?
We would have to allow for the use of fireworks. I think we'd have to go in separately and allow on certain days when fireworks are sold that it'll have to be addressed separately.
New Year's
It's
Eve would
not-
be
I
an
was gonna
occasion
say-
that it would
Yeah, I think there's something in here about holidays.
Right.
Right, and then there was also permits.
Permits for like parades, certain events.
Well, yeah, it just says a pyrotechnic display that was inspected and approved by the city. That's all it says.
I don't remember holidays.
We cannot hear anything, we cannot hear you all.
No, it's so noisy.
I
I know, but please.
I was asking them if this would prevent anyone from using fireworks on the days that, on the times that they're selling fireworks. So would we have to, if we are going to allow the use of fireworks, would that have to be put in here somehow then?
Oh, no. Thank you.
Hopefully it doesn't get too hot.
I don't know. It's annoying.
Fireworks is not mentioned in this particular draft. We would want something said about fireworks, and we would have to.
And our holiday exceptions, if you wanted to include it within a holiday exception, we can amend the proposed one that y'all see.
Because the fireworks ordinance allows the use of fireworks, doesn't it? From what I remember.
It does.
Yeah.
Well, I think we need to just come up with a time limit that would be acceptable for the holidays, something like, because everybody's lighting fireworks and such at midnight on New Year's, correct? But what would be a time that you would say, okay, enough is enough? Would it be 1 a.m.? Would it be 2 a.m.? Would you just need to come up with some type of an agreement on what's acceptable? I know I have people popping them off still at 4 o'clock in the morning. They're still doing it.
Absolutely none of the city ordinances I've read so far as noise ordinances address that.
Okay,
And it's kind of a given
But it's-
But
that it's going to happen.
If it's an ordinance, then we have to.
Well, like I said,
enforce it.
there's not one of them that I've read that addresses that.
We can create one, right?
Maybe it's in their fireworks ordinances and that they can do
Yeah, they
it.
don't allow fireworks, so.
Yeah.
Most cities
Most
don't.
cities,
Yeah.
most cities are not allowing fireworks at all.
I would also like to add maybe a duration time, so this excessive noise was going from 6 to 12, that's 6 hours. Excessive, consistent, if somebody's having a party, it won't last 6 hours, I don't think. I mean, I would like to see something about, right, I don't party, right? But, something that's acceptable if you thought that would be a good idea.
Well, I'm wondering if, I appreciate all the work and everything that went into this, but I think if I had to pinpoint a few items that people complain about, loud music would probably be number one. The barking animals would be number two. Those would be probably the top two things, and with any ordinance, we can always amend it and expand it as needed in the future. I'm just thinking maybe we should consider a much more pared down version that addresses the items that are, because we don't have a way to measure decibel level.
But feet, there are considerations.
No, I understand that, and I'm just wondering if we could consider, like if a resident calls and complains because there's loud music, and the marshal responds and there's loud music, then that's a violation.
Well, he would have a meter. In the city of San Antonio, I've been at parties where the neighbors complain and SAPD would show up and they take a little gun, like a little gun out, and they right there and they get a reading.
Well, one of the problems out here too is the noise with vehicles driving by with the bass turned way up.
Right.
Now,
That's
our
true.
marshal may not have time to pull out his meter.
Well, if he
and-
can hear it, he pretty much.
Well, and I believe this addresses 30 feet from a vehicle.
Right.
And there is a fine attached to a Class C misdemeanor, not to exceed 500. So if you were redrafting, would that be acceptable?
But I agree that the music,
The animals.
the animals,
And the vehicles.
and the vehicles.
And that's,
Those
those are
are the
addressed.
ones that I hear about
Yeah.
from everyone.
May I ask the marshal a question? Do you have one of those things that measures?
Don't have any experience with that.
Okay,
I have one. Decimal reader, I have one.
okay. So we'll have to investigate that as well.
And that's great if they don't see you pull up.
Right. It's loud
To
enough,
ma-
they won't hear you pull
And
up.
that's why I think it's important to have the distance, the 50 feet from your property line. If it can be heard 50 feet from your property line, then it's too loud.
So anyway, we kind of addressed those key points here. I don't know, do we want to add the fireworks stuff, or do we want,
Yeah, I think we need to add an exemption for fireworks.
to add an exemption? So if it's,
Or change a time limit where you call in for definitions of daytime hours, 6 to 11 p.m., exceptions of another paragraph in there would be, or last one, exceptions to the time limits would be on New Year's. I don't know what holidays you want to identify, and people pop fireworks.
mostly
It's just
4th of
to-
July
4th of
and
July and
New
New
Year's.
Year's.
Well, and-
So that would be the two that when they're sold
And
as
it's not,
well.
fireworks should not be a consistent noise problem.
Right.
If somebody New Year's Eve wants to go set off some fireworks, that's legal in the city to do so. But if it goes on for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, then it falls under this. And I don't think our marshal or any other law enforcement officer is going to go, because someone sets off fireworks for 5 minutes at midnight, that it's a big problem. And if we find down the road that it is, then it can be addressed then. But the people around me who set off fireworks, they are doing it for hours on end.
Yes.
It's a tough one to enforce.
Yeah. But every city does have a noise ordinance with their, with their laws set as a foundation to start with.
And I do know that residents who have called Bear County about noise have been told, you don't have a noise ordinance. So there's really not anything that can be enforced, so. Well,
Well, again, the as written, the ordinance is not inconsistent with state law.
right.
So if we add in the fireworks exemption, or if we choose not to, just not to enforce it on those days, we need to make a determination on how we address that. I think we address, the animals are addressed in here, and the distances from residences is mentioned, even people building homes or whatever, doing construction work, that's addressed as well. So, I think all we need to do is consider an exemption for 4th of July and New Year's, some type of exemption. So just so it's noted in the ordinance. We don't want to send our marshal out with an ordinance to enforce that's not clearly defined. So I would make a motion that we approve the ordinance and, that we amend the ordinance to add an exemption for New Year's and 4th of July, and to just increase change the hours from 6 a.m. on between 6 a.m. and 2 a.m.
On which day?
4th of July and New Year's.
Well, what about
Eve to
3rd of July?
Third.
They
Or
can't
that.
shoot fireworks off
No.
the day before
The 3rd of July?
at
What, your
11
4th of
o'clock at night?
Well,
I think it's complicating
It,
it. I really do think, because, again, if someone is shooting fireworks off, and in my area, this happens, they're shooting fireworks off from 4 o'clock in the afternoon till 2 o'clock in the morning, that's a problem.
celebrating.
well, they're celebrating a little bit too much.
They're celebrating independence from their money.
Yeah, but, I don't see that we can make an exemption. Like I said, I haven't found any ordinance, have you,
No,
that
no, they
gives
have
an
this separate for
exemption?
fireworks.
Yeah.
They might put it in the fireworks ordinance,
Mhm.
but they don't have it in the noise ordinance.
Uh-uh.
It is. Well, it's March. We're not gonna have to worry about 4th of July just yet, and we can always amend an ordinance.
But we do have fireworks going off right now, this past week, yeah. Just whatever random time they want to do it, they have them.
And
They still have some.
And according to this, as it stands now,
It would be a violation.
it would be a violation.
Maybe an option for the council to put the fireworks ordinance back on the next agenda,
Right.
and address it. But-
Address fireworks separate from this.
Yeah, yes, and reconsider the fireworks agenda. Or ordinance, sorry.
The ordinance. Okay. You want to change your motion? Or did you make a motion? You just were talking.
Can I motion my own motion?
You may.
Oh, I can?
You may.
Oh, please, okay, I didn't know I could do that. Okay, I motion that we approve an ordinance for the city of Sandy Oaks to provide rules and regulations for noise, declaring the noise prohibited by this ordinance for public nuisance, providing for a penalty of not to exceed $500.
Okay. We have a motion by Alderwoman Tanguma to approve an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sandy Oaks, providing rules and regulations for noise, declaring the noise prohibited by this ordinance a public nuisance, and providing for a penalty not to exceed $500. Do we have a second? Alderwoman Matawalla's second. We have any further discussion?
She's talking about this ordinance, so.
The noise
Yes.
ordinance.
Yeah, this one. I just want to make sure.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. I have Cassandra, may I ask a question? We have a guest that pertains to an item on the ordinance. I don't know that they're going to speak. May I speak to them to see if they'd like to move this up, or?
Yeah, sure, yes. Like when
Did you
it's
just,
a number
you're just
of
here in
small-
case we have questions?
Yes,
You're
if you
good?
have questions.
Okay. I didn't want you to,
No, you're fine.
okay, good, thank you.
You want to move it up the agenda?
No, we're good, we're good. Okay, so item number 11. Discuss, consider, and approve an ordinance establishing authority to place traffic control signs in the city. And this is brought by Alderwoman Gillespie and Alderman Tremblay. And I will let BJ explain what this one's all about.
Very simply, in order to place any kind of traffic control sign, we have to have an ordinance stating that we have the authority to place one. So if there's a traffic sign missing, in order to put a replacement up, we have to have this ordinance.
So we're talking about traffic control signs, not street signs.
I
Correct.
think we're talking about replacing, not
Replacing
putting
or putting.
putting new ones.
Either or, we have to have an ordinance stating that.
That's besides what we had
That's
talked
the
about.
MUT, yes.
And this is usual and customary, is that correct?
If they were replacing something that was already established by
Right.
the city, then that doesn't need an ordinance, but if it
Right.
was before the city was incorporated, then
We're just,
now it's a city.
Now it's a
Right.
city and we have to do that.
And you
Mhm.
just would identify all the areas where the stop sign would go, or traffic light, or whatever, traffic signals.
Within the ordinance, we would have to identify all of those?
Yeah, any time that one would need to be.
But we can do an ordinance giving us the authority to do that?
Yes.
Okay. Without having to identify every one in the ordinance?
Well, then once we know where they need to go, then they would be identified.
Okay.
And we basically identify them as safety hazards.
Yes.
Not necessarily having an engineering study done.
Yes, it doesn't need to be.
It doesn't need
Well,
to be an
that's-
engineering study.
Wait a minute.
But that's part of that's part of the traffic control. That if there has not been a traffic sign there, there has to be an engineering study done,
Not an engineering study, a traffic
traffic-
study.
a traffic study done
Right.
by an engineer stating
It's necessary.
it's necessary.
I just wanted to clarify.
Yes.
for folks, huh?
And it doesn't have to be done, it has to be done by an engineering firm. It doesn't have to be done by an engineer. They can send out whoever works for them, but it has to be done by an engineering firm.
Jesse may be able to clarify more.
Jesse, you have
She
comments?
did it. She did.
She did. She got
But
it.
so council is aware, wherever signs are placed now, those all have to be also listed in an ordinance. So when police officers write citations, so they can't be fought. It's in ordinance, every place there's a stop sign, yield sign, whatnot. That if a ticket's written on that, the citizen can say, there's not one there, he's lying, it's in ordinance.
So only for the
I've seen
new ones?
No.
Any new
Any
one?
existing.
And existing.
So we need a,
We need
A
to
survey done for all of them.
Okay.
I know 3 cities, I've looked at their ordinances and they're in there.
Okay.
Push back on that.
So if I'm understanding correctly, what we need to do with this one is to add to the ordinance a listing of every traffic control sign in the city and where they're physically located.
Yes, and I've seen, maybe Jesse can clarify, I've seen kind of cross streets, and that's how I've seen it done. That may be more specific as far as degrees. I don't know how specific it gets, but I've seen just cross streets, but Jesse may.
So the intersection of,
Have to clarify what, if there's a survey done, however the survey identifies it, we would identify it in the ordinance that way.
okay. So this one's kind of not ready.
Maybe we can amend it. If we can just add somewhere in here in the ordinance that to identify, discuss to consider and approve an ordinance establishing authority to place traffic control signs as identified, and then we list them in the ordinance.
But I don't think we've drafted one yet.
Oh, so we haven't drafted.
We haven't even drafted it yet.
But we need somewhere in there so that they're identified. That's some homework for.
That is some homework, yes it is. So, anyone like to make a motion on this one?
go ahead, David.
How much time do you think we need to do that, ET?
Well, guess who's going to get to do that, David?
So I'll make a motion, we postpone this item to the April agenda.
We have a motion on the floor by Alderman Tremblay to postpone item 11 on the agenda until the April meeting. Do we have a second?
I second.
Alderwoman Gillespie seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? Say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item 12. Discuss, consider, and approve the purchase of animal control traps and a catch pole to assist with capturing dogs for removal from the city. We did pass the animal control ordinance, and heard a lot of positive feedback on that. But one of the challenges that we have is the ordinance says that the animal must be contained before Elmendorf will come pick it up. And the problem with that is people are afraid of the dogs could be aggressive, we have elderly, we have disabled, you know, they're going to need some assistance with capturing and containing the animals. So my thought was that the city would purchase probably just one trap for a dog. We might get a small one for a cat. Those are relatively inexpensive. And have them available to residents. We could discuss how we wanted to do that, if we wanted them to put a deposit down, or the city goes out on their behalf and places the trap, or but that was kind of the whole gist of this item for the agenda. And Elmendorf does not have equipment for us to borrow, if you will. And I did do some pricing to get a trap for a cat runs probably no more than $50. But in order to get one that would be big enough for a good sized dog, which is what we have running around out here, that's going to run somewhere around $250 for a single trap. As far as the catch pole goes, our marshal kind of educated me on that, and he is qualified to utilize one of those. It's not something that is probably to be used by just the general public in trying to catch an animal.
There's a legal liability issue with using a catch pole as just a regular person. It doesn't look good when you're catching the animal and you're using it to pick up the animal, strangling them, to put them in the cages. That could make a citizen look bad. What if they hurt themselves with the animal? There could be a legal liability issue because we're providing that equipment. And they're not trained to use that equipment like animal control officers.
Okay. So, I mean, we could
hold it, we could have one available for a trained animal control officer to use on
Okay.
city property if they could use it while in the city. We would just have to figure out where we're going to put the said equipment.
And question for you on the trained animal control officer, because I know in your
Yes, ma'am, I'm an
experience you
advanced
have
ACO,
that.
So I've got training on catch pole use, this claw devices for snakes and skunks and cats.
Okay. Now, are those credentials universal, or are they
Yes, ma'am.
specific?
I'm certified by the state of Texas.
By the state of Texas, okay. Perfect.
I have several have-a-heart traps that are fine for cats. Most, if anyone, because our ordinance is for dogs.
Our ordinance is for dogs, that is true.
So, I don't know why, I don't see that we should be, if anyone needs a trap, I have our trap for a cat, I've got them.
Okay. So we're really talking about a catch pole and a large trap for a dog.
Probably
As
two.
stated on the agenda.
That's right. But I did say dog, yes.
I'd say get a couple of them.
For the dogs?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll entertain a motion then.
I make a motion that we authorize the expenditure for purchase of 2 animal control traps to assist with capturing dogs for removal from the city.
Only the traps?
Yeah, I think we'll wait on the poll. Just have enough time and place to put this stuff.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Tremblay to authorize the city to purchase 2 animal traps for the capture of dogs. Do we have a second?
Is there an amount limit, an amount not to exceed?
Why don't we say $600, because I don't know about shipping or tax or any of that. Does that work for you?
That's fine. 600.
Well, then you say it.
Sorry to interject, council, I did have a thought. that other agency's picking up our animals, we may be having to provide some equipment. We may consider rabies gloves. Gloves come down to here because they're going to be probably, well, if we're putting out the traps, baiting them, the animal gets caught in the trap, we're going to be moving the traps, emptying them. And they might want to have some sort of, provided by us, the gloves, so they can pick these traps up.
Wouldn't they have those
I would
themselves?
say that Elmendorf would already have,
But since they said equipment, I'm not sure.
yeah.
That may be equipment they may or may not have that we
Okay.
may need to.
Well, if that's what they're doing in their own city, I would think they would have those
They're already
gloves.
equipped.
Not sure.
Yeah.
But we don't know, so we can't really,
Well, I talked to him today, he didn't say he didn't tell me he needed anything, other than just to have the dog already caught. So-
right.
so I can-
Just for reference in the future with the catchpole, you might want to have some sort of
Okay.
protection.
hand protection. If we do start moving these cages with the animal in it, these animals are going to be
Well-
scared going around that cage. They'll have access to your fingers when you
Yeah,
move the cage.
Okay, so we're only talking about animal control traps and a catch pole on the agenda.
I
So-
can check with the suppliers that I use, and it would avoid the shipping charges.
Right, and I've just been doing some cursory research on it. I'm sure that there's other options, but
Yeah.
just to kind of get a feel for what they
Yeah.
typically run.
I can check and see, like I said, they would avoid shipping charges, they just get the stuff here.
Okay, so
Petco might get them for you.
would you like Alderman Tremblay to restate your motion?
Yes, make a motion that we
I'm in pest control.
approve the purchase of animal control traps, 2 animal control traps, to assist with the capturing of dogs for removal of the city with a cost not to exceed $600.
Okay. We have a motion by Alderman Tremblay to authorize the city to purchase 2 animal control traps to be used for capture of dogs within the city, not to exceed a cost of $600. Do we have a second?
A second?
Alderwoman Gillespie seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries. Okay, item 13. Discuss, consider, and approve an ordinance establishing procedures for vacant, burned, abandoned buildings. Okay, you may be excused.
I'm old.
So this is another hot topic in the city. I'm sure y'all get the same calls that I do. And honestly, we brought this item up once before, but I think during the transition, it kind of got lost in the shuffle. So the intent with this is to be able to, for the city to be able to address through an ordinance some of the buildings that are uninhabitable due to damage, due to fire, and any other number of reasons that they would not be inhabitable. We have one building that was a fire loss last year, and it's still sitting there. And I have checked with the fire marshal from Bexar County, and that property was released back to the owners within the week after the incident. There's a criminal investigation going on with that, but the property itself has been released back to the owners. We have another property that had some vehicular damage, and it's uninhabitable. And I've done some checking on that one. The insurance claim was paid to the owners, and they have, I guess, chosen not to take care of that property. So I think it's incumbent upon the city to address these on behalf of everyone. I mean, it helps. It's a health issue. It's a danger for kids who are out running around that want to get on the property. The kids are going to be kids. It's you have animals that are going to set up house in there, and who knows what kind of rodents and everything else. So it's an eyesore. It affects property values, and I think it's in the best interest for us to address this.
And I think we did at one time.
We
A
tried
while back,
to.
We did it on health and safety. I think we
Yes.
addressed it in that aspect.
we did not pass an ordinance
Yeah,
on
I've done
what
it,
to
though.
do, yes. And there's a whole lot of definitions. That was not me.
Correct that first part there.
Oh. Ms. Ortiz, do you have this particular one in front of you?
The,
This particular ordinance?
yes.
Could you read, look down at, on line 6, and clarify just in your notes for correction what type of hearing that needs to be? There's no need to, on the caption, sorry.
Oh.
Line 6, towards the right. We're looking at this one. We were looking at,
Yes,
that's funny.
that is funny.
So there was a lot of information in here, but I think that this does give us,
I know there are a lot of buildings that people have started, homes people started and decided not to finish, and some of them are boarded up, some are not. And I
Right.
think we can clean up some of those as well.
right,
Get some people motivated to either continue the work or let us finish it for them if they're not willing to clean it up. And some of them actually look like they would have been nice homes
Right.
had they finished them.
It's talks about water heating facilities, so that's a facility, a place where they do, or is that in the home? Because it says,
which page are you on?
oh, it's on S,
S?
to the 5th page, it's at the bottom. It talks about water heating facilities, making sure that they have the water at an appropriate temperature, and it's found in the laboratories and the basins and the tubs at a Fahrenheit of 120. Are we
It's
talking
basically
about
a water heater.
a water heater in a home?
Right.
So how do we assess
I guess,
people's homes that way?
well, yeah, we're not going to go out and inspect everyone's home.
No.
But it would just be another point if there were other factors, just be another one as well. Just that
If we had that
it's
type of
uninhabitable
inhabitable home, and then you have a water heater that's present, then that would,
and it's not functional.
okay.
This particular ordinance, is this in, does this line up well with state
It's-
regulations?
Yes, chapter, it says in the front, 214 of the local
214.
government code, a lot of it is verbatim from there.
Okay.
It's just the city needs to adopt in order to enforce it and then have a public hearing.
Okay.
I guess the building officers of the commission, is that something we create or something that's already in existence?
The ordinance creates the commission, it's made up of the city council.
Oh, so it also talks about a lien holder or mortgage company that owns the property, includes structures improvement within the city boundaries, it exceeds 100,000 total value. So if we decide, this is pretty large, if we decide that, that something needs to be removed, and, you know, who absorbs the cost of that? The owner?
Would be liable for that.
Liable for that?
If it's in foreclosure, it probably would go to the mortgage company.
Right.
So that's what that speaks about.
Okay. And then if the owners cannot be found, like the one you spoke of, who just took the money and ran, you know, then we would be at a loss, but they would still have a,
It would go to a public hearing.
they would still have it against them.
Okay. We still ready?
I make a motion that we approve the ordinance establishing standards for buildings and structures and providing for the process to deal with them as noted in the ordinance, rather than read the whole thing.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Tremblay approving the ordinance establishing standards for buildings and structures and providing for
Procedure
to address.
as
Okay.
noted.
As noted in the ordinance. Do we have a second?
Second. Whipper.
Alderwoman Matawala has seconded. We have any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm abstaining because I was absent.
I will note that. So the motion carries. We have one abstaining vote due to absence during discussion by Alderwoman Gillespie. So noted. Okay. And next on the agenda, item 14. We're going to discuss, consider, and approve the selection of a city engineer. For the purposes of this agenda, it is specific to assess drainage on Mathis Road and also drainage at Copper Canyon near Lost Hills. I do know that some of you here, but people on the council, we had a lady that came by and talked to us a couple meetings ago about engineering. So we had heard from her. I reached out to another gentleman who happens to be here with us, and his name is Gary Montgomery. Is that correct? And Gary does contract engineering work for the city of Elmendorf. I did reach out to Cody Daly over in Elmendorf, and he suggested that we talk with this gentleman. So in your package you have information from both of the engineers. Mr. Montgomery is with River City Engineering and has provided us with a letter of introduction and some information on the services that they provide, as well as a rate structure. And the city did approve the creation of the position for a city engineer. I think we're progressing in such a way that it's time. We have some very specific things that need to be addressed. This was also prompted through a discussion with Mr. Gibbs, who wants to build the strip mall over by the Dollar General. And his engineer has indicated to him that the existing culverts that run under Mathis Road may not be adequate for the runoff. So I think we need an engineer to help us kind of understand what's going on with that. The good news, if there is any with that particular thing, is that that particular Culvert is within TxDOT control, so it's not a city issue. But I think from a city perspective, it's important that we understand that. The other thing that we have is Alderwoman Gillespie and I were out kind of touring the city over the weekend. After I encountered something, I grabbed her to come make sure I wasn't seeing things. We have an area down at Copper Canyon and Lost Hills that has a significant amount of water, not just standing water, but running water. And we haven't had any rain until the last couple of days. I'm talking about a steady.
running water.
In this sand?
Yes, sand.
leak.
Yeah.
But it's, we don't know where it's coming from. And along those lines, I mean, the very next day I got a phone call from a resident who bought a lot, and I asked him where, and he says Copper Canyon and Lost Hills, and he wanted to know if he could put a driveway in, and I was like, ooh, can you hold off for a little bit until we get an engineer to kind of help us understand what's going on in that area down there. So that's the whole purpose, and
But was the water coming from under the, I mean, was it coming up from the ground or just?
we're not sure.
Was the water in the ditch?
There was
the lower parts,
What can
the low,
happen, 'cause I installed septic
I
and
know.
other things out there.
It's okay.
The water can seep
I
from its
understand.
way.
So, is there anything that you would like to talk about your firm?
Just an introduction, as you said, I'm Gary Montgomery, River City Engineering. This is what we do. We are city engineers for several small cities. She mentioned Elmendorf. We work for Fredericksburg, New Braunfels, do some work for San Antonio Water System, Guadalupe Blanco River Authority, Canyon Regional Water Authority. About half of our business is in the water world, but we do streets, drainage, a lot of plat reviews. We don't do any land development. We're strictly municipal engineers and water, wastewater engineers, but we don't do any land development at all. But we do review plats, ordinances, rewrites, a lot of development ordinances for new developments and that for cities that are growing, getting the development ordinances set, zoning, all the mapping, all of that. We have in-house surveyors, we have contacts for geotechnical engineering for roadways, that type of thing that we normally put under our contract for additional services. Anything for environmental or geotech, but again, we're strictly municipal engineers, and be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay. Could you, I mean, just based on what you heard just a moment ago, a project from your perspective, give me an amount of time that you think.
Well, typically what we do with most of our cities that we're city engineers for, we have a engineering service agreement with the city, and we work on task orders. So our engineering contract just spells out the basics of the contract, but we would have an authorization for every project.
Okay.
So whenever you call and say, I have a low water crossing I want you to look at, we need to size some culverts or whatever it is, we will write a scope of work and a fee for that project.
For that project, okay.
And we don't start any work until you sign the authorization and tell us to go. But that document will have the scope, the fee, and the timeline.
Would you go out and look at it first?
Yes, typically we do, yes.
Okay.
So are we paying you to do the scope of work, to come back with that? Are we paying for your
No, you're not.
work statement?
No.
And just so straight, Mayor Ball, are we basically, we're just talking about
For right
this
now,
project,
we are
we're not-
selecting.
Are we selecting a city engineer? Or
Not
are we selecting just for this project?
Just for these projects. Just for these projects right now.
And that's the drainage on all of Mathis Road or just?
No, no, no. It's a very specific area where Mr. Gibbs is wanting to develop the, by the Dollar General.
If I could ask you just one more question. If in fact the area on Mathis Road is TxDOT's responsibility, in your experience, have you worked with TxDOT in the past?
Yes.
What are they normally pretty easy as far as if we identify a problem, or do we need to wait for them to put it on their master plan budget for it? Are they going to turn around and they come and fix it?
It depends on the size of the project. If we can get something that we know there's a TxDOT project coming, you know, they're going to rework the road, we definitely want to get ahead of them and say, these are the issues we need to fix in your project. Typically what TxDOT does, especially on smaller scale projects, is unfortunately they put it on the developer to fix that. If it's an undersized culvert going under their infrastructure. Same as a city would if a development wanted to come in and they needed to upsize culverts. That would be, it could either be a private-public partnership. Just depends. Every project's a little bit different with TxDOT. I'm not sure if they have anything identified down here, but if it's on their radar, we can try our best to get that ran up the flagpole to be higher on their priority list.
So you would basically turn around and give us a scope of work if we
Yes, sir.
decide to do this?
You would get a scope, a fee, and then a schedule.
And so as a kind of a refresher to the other firm that presented to us a previous meeting, I did ask them to send also a one-page, kind of what they do and their fee schedule as well, just for comparison.
The fees you identified those are all of your fees, not necessarily utilizing all these people on
Correct.
this on project. You just-
Right. And we will break out, we use those hourly rates, but we'll put in our block, you'll see in our proposal that it says the project manager will have this much time at this rate, CAD technicians will have this much, survey at this much. And we just put in our proposal, we break it down to the 3 or 4 staff or 5 staff that would be on this project.
Where exactly are your offices? Where do you?
We have a New Braunfels office and a Austin office. We have, I believe, we just brought a new guy on. I believe we have 22 employees now between the 2 offices.
And so would we be paying for moving your equipment or whatever
We
from
don't-
wherever you?
We don't charge travel time.
Okay.
Similarly, if we have a project with you, we don't charge our rate for coming to your council meeting. That's part of the being at the project is coming and giving you an update on the project. So that's not outside of the scope of our project. We have, that's all part of our fee is coming to you and giving you an update monthly if it's a long-term project. Or at your request if we go every 2 months or whatever your, the council's wish is. If they want monthly, or we can send an email update or a letter update to say this is where we are, this is where we're headed.
And just for the fees, how you bill? Do you bill once the project is completed, or if it's a 2-month project, are you billing in between?
We typically bill monthly. On the smaller projects, we'll usually just bill one time at the end whenever we're finished. But if it's a long-term project, we will bill monthly, and we bill on the 15th of the month for work, for the previous work.
You bill on the 15th and it's payable by?
It's a 30-day.
30 days.
Yes.
And if that 30 days wasn't met for some reason, if we had a meeting on the 14th, you billed on the 15th, and we don't meet, it'd be 30 days.
We normally don't get too concerned unless we
Okay,
get about 120 out. Then we start asking questions.
Okay. Just thought I'd throw it out there.
Yes. No,
late fees.
we're easy to work with. We don't charge interest or anything, but, like I say, if we get out 3 or 4 months, we know something was wrong and we need, either we need to fix it or we need to come back and talk to you, but, typically we don't have any problems with.
Okay.
The area on Copper Canyon, that's a residential area. Has
It
it
is
been identified
residential.
as a flood zone?
Well, what's interesting about that and why I would like an engineer to look at that is in the street construction blueprints that I got from Bear County, they reworked that entire section down there. And when you go down there, it's not like any other area in the city. It's got big concrete culverts, it's got the big culverts, but on both sides of the road. And they've got, I don't know what you call it, instead of a bar ditch like everybody else has, they're concrete. There's water, because and then, there was a lot of water.
There's no public water system in that area?
Saws is in there, yes.
That would be, the first thing I would do is check for chlorine.
But-
If there's chlorine in the water, that tells you if it's coming from a pipe or if it's.
Right, now, I
from-
didn't notice any odor from the water
No.
at all.
No.
Some of it was standing, there was a little bit of running, but it was just an odd thing to see. And truly, the amount of work that went into building that specific area and to still have water running concerns me.
That's one way to take an unknown away. If we can find the source of where the water's coming out of the ground, we test that for chlorine.
Right.
And that knocks one thing off. Then
Right.
we know it's a groundwater issue.
Okay,
Then we have to figure out where that groundwater's coming from.
okay. So this is one where we're not a nomination because we're not selecting for the position. This is,
It's more of a contract engineering position for these specific.
okay, and so we're looking for a motion for that.
Yes.
Okay, not a nomination.
Got it.
Okay.
I still have one more question for you. I'm sorry. As far as the drainage situation on Mathis Road, and it's Mr.
Gibbs?
If his engineer is telling you that there is a drainage, possible drainage problem
That it may
there,
not be sized correctly.
and for you to go in and look at that, wouldn't you need to see what they plan to do
Yes.
prior to? I mean,
And-
so,
But that, just so you know, that's the question from his engineer. Who is your city engineer that I can work with?
Well, and our first task would be to identify the culvert and then identify the basin that drains to it. So it may be more than just his property that contributes drainage to that area. And that's the next thing I talked about with TxDOT. It may come down that the developer has to participate in some of the costs, but he may not be contributing all of the drainage to that area. There may be more,
Right.
there may be
but
several hundred
if it is
acres.
TxDOT's, why is it the city's responsibility? Should it not be just TxDOT's responsibility?
No, because it's
'Cause it's
for
fine now.
development in our city.
But it's TxDOT's culvert. I mean,
It's their culvert, and we would have to petition them in some fashion to
And
amend whatever they have there to accommodate what we're looking to do.
They're
in the
probably going to
city.
say when they put it there it was sufficient. Now you want to change it, so now you have,
Right.
you have to fix it. Is probably what they're going to say.
And again, we wouldn't want to size just for his development.
Correct.
We would want to size for the full subbasin so that whenever the next tract wants to develop, we don't have to go back to the same culvert and put in
Right.
another one. We size it for the basin, and we'd have to make some land use assumptions to impervious cover. I don't know if the city, I haven't looked at the ordinance yet to see if there's an impervious cover limit, but that's one way to back out some of the runoff numbers to make a calculation on that.
The city doesn't at this time, but yeah, we're all new at this. So we have two firms to select from.
I'll make the motion that we select the River City engineer to do this particular job.
We have a motion from Alderman Tomasini to select River City Engineering for the two items, assessing drainage on Mathis Road and the Copper Canyon near Lost Hills. Do we have a second?
A second.
Alderwoman Gillespie seconds. Do we have any additional discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Welcome.
Thank you.
We will be in contact for sure. And you're welcome to stay if you want to hear how the rest of this goes.
Well, and I was just going to say that I can bring, I assume the proposal would come back to your April meeting?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, as quickly as we can. Now, so we need to approve his proposal that he brings to us. Okay, perfect.
And I'll try to schedule something with you next week to come, so I know
What areas that
what
we're talking
areas
about?
looking at, and
Perfect.
then we can work up a proposal. I'll have it to you in plenty of time for the
Perfect.
next council meeting.
Okay, and then your information was on,
I'll give you a card.
oh, okay. Well, I'll give you one too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Trade you. Thank you. Okay.
Can I get one?
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Okay, next up is item 15. Discuss, consider, and approve an ordinance regulating travel trailers, recreational vehicles, campers, and tents in the city. This was brought by Alderwoman Gillespie and Alderman Tomasini.
I will let Alderman Tomasini.
Well, I couldn't find anything for tents.
It's not a problem in other cities.
As an example, that might be something that the attorney will have to, if there is such an ordinance for camping or tents, I don't know if there is, but.
If it's a nuisance, it can be, we would just have to define the parameters and what a tent is and.
Well, I couldn't find any examples for that, but I did find some for recreational vehicles, and that's what's in this ordinance right here. And it's pretty short. Now, I did find some other ordinances that were real specific about where you could park an RV, and where it had to be stored, and I did put that in here. But those are options, I guess, if anybody else wants to consider that. There was stuff like some of them couldn't be seen from you had to park it somewhere where it couldn't be seen from the street. It had to be inside a building. It had to be so far from a property line. There were a lot of other restrictions that could be added, but I just didn't put them in here.
And if I'm not mistaken, the intent of this ordinance initially is to address those situations in the city where somebody has bought a piece of land, put a camper on it, and they're living in it.
And
Yes.
that's in here too.
Or there
there's
are
several
multiple.
campers,
Yes.
Yes.
And that's in here, but that was always included in the ordinance of where to park them and place them. There wasn't a separate ordinance for that. I couldn't find any.
Okay.
It was always included in an ordinance of regulating where you could park them and where you could store them. And that's why that's in here also. It's in section number 2.
Well, and I mean, what it's saying here, you're talking about here under general prohibitions?
Yes.
So, it shall be unlawful to place, park, or maintain any recreational vehicle on any public street or right-of-way in the city for a period in excess of 24 hours. I mean, that's easy. it shall be unlawful to occupy any recreational vehicle in the city for longer than a period of 72 consecutive hours.
And that was defined in different ways too. Some of the ordinances said occupy, some of them specifically said you couldn't live in one. It couldn't
Well,
be used as
here's my concern.
living quarters. is
But
what
here's,
it said.
right, and here's my concern with that particular one. So it's the holidays, families coming in, maybe they're gonna stay a week or two, you know? I don't know about this particular one. I like the idea though of defining, I mean, I don't know how you define that somebody's living in it.
Well, some of the ordinances, they actually, some cities actually have their ordinances where over a year's time, an RV can be parked for a maximum of 14 days or 30 days over a year's time period. If people have people coming in from out of town and they're parking in the driveway and they're visiting for a week or 2 weeks or whatever, then that's fine. But that's as long as that vehicle that RV can be there, or that camper can be there. And then it has to be 30 days before you can have another one come in and do that.
Yeah, there was different ways that it was worded. Some of them said that, well, like I included here, they couldn't be connected to a sewer system or
Right.
any public or private facilities.
Well, you gotta be careful with
Utilities.
that in our city, because they'll just pull the
Put it on
plug.
the ground.
But I thought that was a good idea to have it. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do this.
Right.
It just depends on how, some of the ordinances said that it couldn't be used for any kind of living quarters or permanent living quarters.
Right.
Sometimes it was worded like that.
But again,
But
how do you define that?
Yeah.
Well, that's,
Well, that's section 3 kind of addresses your concern about the families coming in to visit, because it does allow for a recreational vehicle to be on someone's property that,
If there's a residence
yeah,
there.
if there's a residence. The only thing that this ordinance would not cover or restrict would be if they're parking out on the street in front of the property.
Right.
If that's an issue, but if they're parking in the driveway, this would allow that.
in some of the cities, you even have to get a permit to park an RV on property.
Yeah, we don't want to go there.
Well, that's just another way some of them.
And I have seen one or two that are parked on the right of way.
I have to.
And I think we addressed that in
We
the
did.
parking in a public right of way. We
Yeah.
get those that way.
Yeah. I think what we're trying to accomplish here is to identify a habitation that is a mobile vehicle. We don't want somebody living in a mobile vehicle, a motor home, a tent, a camper, whatever, on the property. And certainly we don't want multiples of those on a property.
You forgot bus.
Bus, okay. And TP.
And TP.
And we do have potential TP going
Is there
on.
TVs?
Yes, he corrected someone that when they said that he was going to put up a tent, he said, oh no, it's a teepee.
It's a TP.
And one of the ordinances that I found also has this 72 consecutive hours limitation, and it also added on something. I guess this particular community was having problems with maybe after 72 hours they would drive off and then come
And
back.
come back, right.
They added that same recreational vehicle cannot return for another 90 days.
Right.
So I think it kind of depended upon the particular problem that community was having, is how the ordinance was worded.
I mean, in section 2, you know, the first part, we're not going to allow them to park in the public right of way, so that's fine. I'm not sure about number 2, where it's unlawful to occupy any recreational vehicle in the city for longer than a period of 72 hours. We need to,
Well, that's to keep them from living in it,
Living in it.
It's,
basically.
but if you have family visiting, and she said in section 3 it should,
Well, it just depends on how long you want that recreational vehicle there, and how long we want, the community wants it to be there. We can change it.
and see, Cassandra, where you talked about in section 3, see, I think that's a loophole for those who are doing what they're doing today. Because it says it is not a violation of this ordinance if a recreational vehicle is parked and/or stored on a lot, tract, or parcel of land upon which is located an inhabited dwelling unit, and the recreational vehicle is owned by the occupant of the inhabited dwelling. So that's allowing multifamily. We're single family, we don't allow multifamily on the lots, or that's not the intent. So this, kind of the way that reads, I have the house, come on kids, bring your camper, you can live on my property.
And that's what's happened across the street from me.
Yes. And that's not.
There's quite a few of those.
That's not what we want.
So maybe it may be a better option just to restrict the time, 30 days, 90 days, 14 days.
I think 14 is more
I think
reasonable.
14 is more reasonable, because
There's not too many
people that want to stick around that long.
families that I know that
I think we could also add something in here that, about unregistered or unlicensed, because
Yes.
a lot of them, they park them there and they pull the plate off it and it stays there forever.
Yeah,
as
but
well.
that was
So-
another, on some of the ordinances, it specifically said, where it says recreational, the definition of a recreational vehicle, it said a licensed camper, trailer, travel trailer, or motorhome. It added that license on
I
it.
think we need to do that.
Yeah, I like that idea as well. So,
well, if
license,
it's unlicensed, then it's allowed?
No,
no.
it
Okay.
has to be licensed.
Oh, it has to be
Has
licensed,
to be
is what you're saying.
licensed.
Okay,
Cannot be
gotcha.
an
Yeah.
unlicensed recreational vehicle.
And if someone, if there was some kind of family emergency where someone had to be there for a longer period of time, they could apply for a variance.
Right.
But then again, I think about that, and if I were in a situation where had a family member that was ill, say, and I was going to be there for a long period of time, if I'm there to help them, I'm going to be in the same structure with them. I'm not going to be sitting out in a camper,
Right.
so.
Well, and the other part of this is that if somebody buys a lot and they're going to build on the property, I know I did it. I bought a property that needed some work done, and I parked a travel trailer there and lived in it for 6 months while I was getting the property ready. So I don't know how that's a no-no?
That was listed under.
It's against your deed restrictions.
That was, those kind of things were normally in ordinances for called temporary housing or some temporary living quarters or
But
something.
virtually all of the deeds, that's addressed in there.
It is, but as
We're
a
not
city,
talking
we're not
about-
enforcing deeds.
We're not enforcing deeds. So
Reinforcement.
the term that he used, temporary housing, I mean, could we somehow reference that in here?
We could have it as an exclude or an exception to this, and I don't know how you would, if temporary housing would be something more, if it would be would include recreational vehicle, and then that would be the exception. We'd include something what the timeline for that.
That just bleeds over how do you control that? How do you say, okay, you came in?
It's another ordinance at the
Yes,
next meeting.
yes.
No, I'm serious.
That's probably why I found so many different ones, because everybody's got their own way of thinking they got it done right.
Right.
So, some said temporary living quarters. Some of them said can't be used as a permanent residence.
Right.
There was just different ways. That
And
they were
I'm
written.
not sure how many of them that are a problem now didn't start out as, okay, I'm going to put this RV here or this camper here, and I'm going to build a house, or I'm going to put a mobile home on in the next couple of months, and then 5 years down the road,
Right.
still a camper, still an RV, with 2 or 3 more added.
I mean, as much as I hate to say it, I do like section C here that says a recreational vehicle should not be connected to a sanitary sewer facility, because that certainly, that would
Says
imply
that,
permanent. But that can create its own other problems.
Yes.
And if we change the 72 consecutive hours to no more than 2 weeks,
14 days. And the
Yeah,
same thing
let's
when
call
it-
it 14
I think You
days.
could put it as when it is allowed as well, or, I mean, if you put prohibition, the other would be when it is allowed. And I think it would be no more than 14 days within a calendar year or something like that.
do you want to limit how many
One.
RVs you can
One per
have?
lot.
1 per lot?
1 per lot.
Okay.
If they've got that many relatives, they can all chip in and stay down at the motel.
There's a new hotel right down the road. Okay. And so this has this Class C misdemeanor, this fine, this penalty is standard.
Yeah, and you can't go over $500, so that's what the
Okay.
ordinance.
Okay.
Got a lot of amendments.
Well, just a few. I mean, I don't see a whole lot. What did you, oh, D, no more than 1.
And get rid of section 3, is that what you wanted to do too, right?
Well, I might just need to reword it, is what I was thinking. So if it's parked or stored on the lot, tract, or parcel of land,
What I was trying to do is just not make it against the ordinance to have one in your yard if it's yours. you know,
Correct.
if you're-
What about
People should-
uninhabited?
uninhabited dwelling,
No, no, no. If the recreational vehicle is uninhabited.
well, this kind of, we got to take into consideration what we put up here on the other side, which said that they have to be licensed. So, you know, if they've just parked one there, they're not limiting it.
So what if somebody buys one and they're fixing it up and it isn't licensed yet?
How long is it going to take you to fix it?
And when you use it as an office?
So the recreational vehicle has to be owned by the occupant of the inhabited dwelling. I mean, I see what you're trying to accomplish there.
Well, I guess you could just say it is not a violation of ordinance if a recreational vehicle is parked or stored on a lot, tract, or parcel of land upon, and is not used, could you say and is not used for permanent living quarters? Would that do it?
I don't know, this one, what do you think? What are you thinking on section 3?
Maybe just not used as a residence, I mean, just, and leave it at that. Not used as a permanent residence.
As a permanent dwelling. Because somebody could have a residence somewhere else and still be using it as a dwelling.
Do we want to, this one's tough. Do do we want to address,
Or could you just leave it off altogether?
well, no, I'm with you, I understand the intent. We don't want people to think that they can't park their RV on their property
Yeah.
when they can. I'm thinking of going the opposite direction on this, Cassandra, which is, it's not unlawful for, you know, kind of, this doesn't apply to the owner of the property storing their own vehicle or their own travel trailer on their property. Rewording it in some fashion down here to kind of indicate that they can.
Okay, just, I guess the wording just seems a little.
The wording
tricky
seems,
the way
it is, to me,
I
it
mean,
seems a little.
Okay.
And I think what happens too, even if you allow one and it becomes unregistered and somebody parks on somebody's lot and across the street from Charlotte, and I used to walk there all the time. That was a nice little house. It was a single lady living there, and she met up with somebody, and next thing you know, there's a trailer in the backyard. Next thing you know, there's a pen with a bunch of dogs, and he's got trash piled up. And I don't know if anybody's staying in that trailer anymore,
I think
but
it's
they've got,
her
it's just all trash
After
there.
they
you
trashed the
know.
house next to me.
Oh,
Then she
Lord.
let them move in with
Wow.
her, yeah.
But we really gotta, even if it's one and it's not, I mean, it can still be a nuisance if it's not even occupied, if it's not occupied.
Right.
And so we have to deal with it with other health and safety. We just have to deal with it under other ordinances. I think we just gotta look at the ones that they're parking multiple and they're occupied permanently.
Well,
And
Or
it's
even if
pretty
there's just
easy
one on
to-
a lot and they're living in it.
Right, well, yes, that's true.
And that's where we set the
that's-
14-day limit.
Yep.
and
Well,
that's
except
there.
that we probably do need to address, there are people who are, you know, they bought the lot, they're gonna live there, a mobile home's
Gonna build
coming
a
in, they're
home.
gonna build something. We need to address that as well.
Then we need to look at waivers. And I think well, in the,
Permit?
again, the deed says you can do it if you're building. You got 6 months to complete.
Right.
Most of the deeds read you have 6
Right.
months. And we can address that later.
But you know what, I think you're right, I think we address that separately. And if a permit, not necessarily a permit or a waiver or whatever, but there could be a trigger that we could put in place in something else that would set the clock to ticking on something. So we can, this one I think just needs some work.
But the violation for each offense, so they stay there for 14
Every day,
days. And then
every day after that is an
And then,
offense.
okay, after 14 days, or 15 days, bam, 500,
Yes.
16, bam,
Yes.
500.
Most fines
That
are,
sounds very-
that's how most
that's very-
fines are. It's.
They are,
Like
yeah.
the news.
Very-
That's to encourage them not to do that.
That's how they read it.
If you only charge them $20 a day, it's cheaper than
So
going to an
500,
RV
they'll
park.
probably pack up and go,
Mhm.
because they're being defiant the next day and the next day and the next day. A lot of money.
Yeah. So how do you, what do you guys want to do on this one?
Again, I think we address the long-term ones that really need to stay in there and they're building a home. I mean, you look at it differently. We're looking at this as more of nuisances, eyesores, people that have multiple and they're hooked to, I mean, we've addressed pretty much most of the problems. They're hooked to a sewer, they're hooked to public utility. I think we need to address those. And the day limits, I mean, I think we've identified, I mean, we're pretty lenient as far as what's allowed. And I think if an owner has, on Section 3, when it is allowed, if somebody owns the house and they want to put an RV there and let somebody stand it for a while, that's, I mean, you bend a little bit. When it becomes a health or safety, a violation or they're hooked to permanent power, then we address it that way. But I think we need to get started on it.
Yeah, I agree.
And we give the marshal a full deck when he takes on the job, gets working.
It's going to be a really big book.
But I think we just add the portion on item C as license, and I'll just go ahead and make the motion.
Okay,
I'm
go
going to
ahead.
make a motion that we approve the ordinance, and I'll amend section 1, part C to add that the RV should be licensed.
Okay.
And under section 2, B, shall not, for a period, shall not, for no longer than a period of 14 consecutive days. And add item D, no more than one RV may be parked on any city lot or property.
Not city lot.
City.
Not city lot. The city doesn't own any lots.
On any lot within the city limits.
Okay, that's different. And what do you want to do about,
Item 3 is fine.
3's fine? Okay, we have a motion from Alderman Trimley to amend the ordinance providing regulations for storage and parking of recreational vehicles within the city of Sandy Oaks, to amend section 1, paragraph C, to include licensed recreational vehicle, to also amend section 2, paragraph B, to change from a period of no longer than 72 consecutive hours to read no longer than 14 consecutive days. Also add paragraph D to not allow more than one recreational vehicle on any lot in the city. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. We have a second by Alderman Thomasini. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Okay. Cassandra, at this time, I think I'd like to strike number 16. I think that's going to be a very in-depth discussion that I don't know that we're going to get any benefit from it this evening. Is that okay?
Okay, you can remove it.
Okay, I'm going to remove item 16 from the agenda. Okay, item 17, discuss, consider, and approve the finalization of transfer of assets from Waterwood Park Property Owners Association. The intent of this agenda item, if I'm clear, is for a vote from the council to move into executive session, to agree to do this, then move into executive session for details. Is that correct?
Wait, instead of going to...
No. We're gonna, if the council agrees that we want to do this, we would approve it, then we would discuss the details in executive session. Is that correct?
Anything you guys can be discussed in executive session, any action, approval would be taken.
We bring back out, yes. Okay. So this is an item from a previous agenda. We agreed to bring it back in March. And it's March, and we brought it back. So we're trying to resolve this once and for all. I'd like to hear the comments from the other council members on whether or not they feel that we should move forward with this.
What assets are we talking about? Which ones? The park?
The park and the 21 acre, I call it the scrubland, I don't know. It's
The ditches?
the ditches, yeah. That's pretty much what it is.
And the streets.
And the streets, yes.
Has anybody heard anything about the investigation from TECQ? What's
No.
going on with that?
I have not heard anything on that.
So we don't know if that's still ongoing or not.
It is, it would still be ongoing. Not heard anything, has heard that anything's been resolved.
So if we're going to discuss it, we just basically make a motion to discuss, finalize, and move to executive session.
No, you don't have to make a motion to go into executive session. You can either discuss it, open session, or it's a real estate matter, you can discuss it in closed session, discuss any pricing and related to the real estate transaction. And the executive session item was put on here just
If we need it.
yeah, but if
Well,
it's
how would we,
not needed,
how would we know if we need to or not? What?
Well, okay, so I'll tell you kind of what we know about this. We know that there has been no movement on the TCEQ issue. We know there is no funding for WPPOA. We know there is no means of assessment for WPPOA to collect. We know that nobody wants to pay a maintenance assessment. So we've kind of hit an impasse. There's not going to be any movement on the side of WPPOA. That's a given. So what do we as a city want to do with that? Something needs to be done about it. It's a
time.
gift. It's a gift to the city. There is no sale. There is no financial transaction. There's no money changing hands from WPPOA to the city. So there's.
But we still.
We will incur liability.
Accept the liability for anything that comes back from TCEQ.
That is true. The option, I will propose the other option. I've been in contact with TCEQ, and as long as the investigation is being responded to, they're willing to work with people. There is a finite date when that will stop, but if you're not even in discussion, you're not even trying to rectify the situation, you're not responding, they're going to take another course of action.
Well, I just wonder if
And, but wait, I'm not finished. So that course of action, without the city taking on the responsibility, is that every property owner in Waterwood, not the city, in Waterwood, then becomes personally and financially liable for any fees, penalties, fines, remediation, whatever needs to be done. And that can be quite costly. So the burden then becomes the burden on every resident in Waterwood, not everyone in the city, just those in Waterwood.
Well, the city's still gonna have to pay for it if you take it. I mean.
that's what
I
I'm
understand
saying.
that, but my position is that, yes, something's going to have to be done and it's going to have to be paid for, and it's either going to be paid because the city is working to rectify whatever needs to be rectified and therefore reduce some of the penalties and fines and fees that may be associated with no response whatsoever, or we just let every resident in Waterwood.
I just can't comprehend how, if the investigation started with Jim, how just transferring the property then makes us liable. It'd be like, you stole a car and now you're going to give me the car. I have stolen property, but you stole the car. It just doesn't add up. I mean, I
Well,
just don't see how the
I mean,
city could be
if you
liable.
wanted to take that position, you could go back to Waterwood Development, who
Exactly.
created the
Well, then
problem.
it's still-
But
that
that's
would be
not how that
Jim's-
works.
Jim would be the one who.
That's not how that works.
Can we just pay for the preliminary holes he was talking about to see about the soil, and it's, I don't know, $4,000? Would that be cheaper
That's-
liability to just do it and see what it is?
Get the core samples done.
Yeah, just do the core samples and then we can make a decision.
Do we know what that's going to cost?
I
He
want to
said
say,
$1,000 a hole,
that's what I thought.
and he said he needed 4. So that would be
But
cheaper, no?
the other side of
I mean, we
this
paid his
is,
light bill, we paid the light bill, and it's less than the light bill. We do need to move on.
We
need
do
to
need-
move forward with this.
right.
I just don't, my stand has always been, it was, and I'm not part of
I know.
Waterwood, and that's why I feel this way. It shouldn't be a burden put on the rest of the folks that are within the city, because it wasn't theirs to begin with.
Right.
Although I see as a city, if we're going to do anything with it, if we want, then we need to move forward. So I'm kind of I'm on the fence on this.
I-
I'm on the fence.
I've been on the fence with it for a while, and honestly, it's like playing chicken.
Well, it's in our city, so.
It's in our city, and I think ultimately the city could, I mean, I don't know what happens in a matter of default or, you know, potentially what could happen to that. The city's probably going to have to step in regardless. And I'm just thinking that let's get ahead of it before it gets really ugly down the road.
Well, can we do, like she mentioned, you know, can the city pay for the soils? Can we agree to do that?
Why would we do that?
That's not our, that's
That's
not
not
the
our-
city's responsibility.
But it will be if we take the property.
If we take the property, then we will do that.
So it's like a crystal ball, you can see in the future.
But we know what, but
Well-
if we do the core samples first, then at least we know what the,
If it's a good investment or
So,
not.
okay, let's say that the core sample, we don't even know that there's anything that's gonna be a problem.
I don't think there
It's
is.
risk versus benefit is what it boils down to. And so we take this core samples, and there's a problem. What do we do then? We let this 29 acres in the center of our city, because the WPPOA might go away. Then we have this thing, 29 acres in the center of our city with this problem, and the city's going, oh, not my problem.
Right.
I don't think it works that way.
Well, I will tell you, there is, in talking with TCEQ, there is a program that is available called Brownfields. And that's exactly what it does. It helps to, it's not going to pay for remediation. There may be some grant money, there may be some money available through TCEQ to help with that, but it will also help with removing the fines and penalties that may stack up on that. But it's only available to a municipality. It's not available to a private individual. So that's something available to the city to perhaps investigate and benefit from, but we have to have ownership of the property. It would never be available to a private entity.
It's our wart.
It's our ward.
Yeah, it's our.
We have
It-
some,
Regardless of whether the city owns it or not, it's our wart. And that wart is just gonna grow and grow and grow. If the WPPOA has no money, they have no means of collecting maintenance fees, that 29 acres is just gonna continue to deteriorate. Forget about the TCEQ thing. That's a very small portion. That's just in the maintenance yard, a very, what is it, 20 by 40 foot area?
it's a very small area.
But yet we've got 29 acres that are just sitting there.
That I will tell you
You can remove
is,
the dirt in that area or
well,
cement
see, that's
over it.
just it. That probably will be what the remediation will be, but we won't know until they do the samples. But the other side of that is, there is nobody that's able to control what's happening in the park. There could be more dumping going on, we don't even know, because we're not in a position to do anything. I mean, could be other hazards that people are creating out there while we're all sitting here right now. I mean, we don't know, and it's not ours to control or manage because it's not our property. And the WPPOA is not doing that. So,
Is there any liability insurance you could get on it, on the transfer?
I think that, I don't know that we can even discuss any kind of liability insurance. I mean, we know it's an issue.
I don't see where anybody would.
They'd be foolish. Wait a minute. There might be a WPPOA member who might be willing to do that.
Well, you know, I'm not opposed to taking the park property. I've always wanted to do it. But I just, if we do it without, I would just rather do it after the soil samples. I mean, that's.
You got
We gotta do
$8,000 bucks?
Are you going to fund it? I mean, that's where we're at. That's where we're at. Who's gonna do it?
Also, it's our community that created
I know.
the problem in the first place by not, taking care of that. So we're in the community anyway. It's still our problem, like you said.
Right.
Yeah, so it's our problem.
And there's nothing that,
It might not be big, but, it's still ours.
well, and it's getting bigger all the time.
Yeah, and like you say, you have no control.
You know,
over
you've
the
got
train.
a single wide mobile home that's just sitting there rotting.
Right.
I'll put it to you this way, and I'm talking about a curtain rod, I'm not talking about a drapery rod. When you drop a curtain rod from where they're installed, and it hits the windowsill, and it goes through the windowsill,
Yeah.
it's been secured as well as it can be, which is kind of a joke, because you could, and I'm not talking about a fist.
Somebody could
You
fall
could put your
through with
hand,
that line.
there are holes in the floor, there are
They could
rotten
break your leg,
areas.
your child could die. It's an
Exactly,
open area,
exactly,
we
and
know
that's
where
what's
the-
sitting there now.
Okay.
So if we take the park, do we close it until it's deemed safe?
Well, how are you gonna close it?
Close the gate and we put signs, post it?
What about the fences on the
the
other
fence
side
has
that are
been-
mowed
You-
down?
You basically, you post it, just that it's,
Yeah, the fence has
Yeah,
been
well.
breached so many places that,
Yeah.
Well, we need
and
to,
there's actually been less vandalism and less negative activity since the gate has been broken
Right.
open,
Left open.
because more people are able to get in. They don't need a card to get in. People are driving through there on a regular basis, which seems to be deterring the little bad people, for lack of a better word.
will this change what we need for insurance then?
I don't think so, because it's
Not unless you open the pool probably. The pool would be what you would need insurance for.
Right.
I would think.
well, and there goes the other topic. I mean, there's a pool there that needs to be maintained, filled in, something needs to be done with it.
And I think the pool, that issue can be addressed after this.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Because we have to do something.
We have to do
Something's got to be done.
I mean, the 21 acres that's down there, the scrubland, I mean, in my mind, that's kind of a no-brainer.
Yep.
It is what it is. The park area, you know, we've got a very small area. I mean, really, in comparison, that's 29 acres and there's like a 20 by 40 section.
I'm
of
not even
that.
sure it's 20 by 40.
It's pretty small.
I mean, it is fairly small.
Well, can we just gate it off and?
Well, it's gated
It's
off
gated
now.
off now.
Well, I mean, but not use it for anything? Well,
It's
well,
not being-
the-
Well,
you
no,
still
there's an
have
open
to-
TCEQ case that needs to be addressed. Just because we put a fence around it doesn't mean they're not gonna want something done.
Shucks.
I've never seen any of them.
You haven't. Gee
No.
whiz, Mayor. You don't know nothing. Trying to see if this gives
A size on,
a size on that area. It's a 40 by 15 foot area. 40
by 15?
Yeah, it's approximately 3.5% of the entire maintenance yard.
3% of the total maintenance yard? Or
Right.
the maintenance yard is 3% of?
The area that's
Oh my
under
God.
question is only 3.5% of the entire maintenance yard.
Are there any other repairs that need to be done down there that would cost us?
At the park?
Yeah, at the park.
You've been there.
Well, no, I mean,
Well, did you?
I mean stuff that needs to be fixed right
Did you
away.
take, insurance money for the roof, right?
He did.
Can we get that money for the roof?
He spent it.
that's really easy, no.
And there's,
So that's not right.
well,
Okay.
Well, there were
Well-
utility bills. I mean,
Yeah, he spent it.
I know. Now, I will tell you.
less than half of the property owners even paid their maintenance fee. And those seem to be the most vocal about how bad the park is.
And
You can't-
in your packet is a financial statement that was put together, it's back towards the back, that kind of shows what assets they have on hand, what liabilities that they currently have, and the difference is, how much did it come up to? $400 is what's left.
$143.
$143, sorry. No.
You got the old one or the new one? You
What's
got the old one.
different on here?
That's the old one.
What's missing?
No, when I was asking about repairs, I meant repairs that were, more or less emergency or anything.
The roof of the clubhouse.
The clubhouse roof.
Well, I mean, even that is not,
Well, then, no. I mean, the pool is probably the one thing that needs to be figured out. It's been drained.
And just get that stuff.
because there
What
may
is
be a,
this? Oh, the new bill?
Yes, that would be, that was, that and that and half of it was good.
because when I went down there one time, there was a water leak, that's why I was wondering.
At the pool?
Yeah, at the
Well, the
valve.
water's, yeah, I know where you're talking about. It's where
It's the valve where you turn it off and on.
Yeah, that would have to be addressed.
That's a 2-inch line, and it'll have to be, if it breaks, it'll,
Right. So, I mean, we're kind of at that point in time where we got to make a decision, what are we going to do?
yeah.
Would anybody like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion that we go into executive session. Is that how we do this?
You can just call it
Can't
executive
now.
session, but if you
Okay.
do, I have another section to address when you.
Before we do that.
Well, so I put the line to read that section opened up, for the meeting record.
So, we would, she would make a motion.
You don't need a motion to go into.
Don't, okay.
We don't.
Okay.
Okay. So this discussion we just did right here, there's no action on this, or?
Not yet, we can come back to it after executive session.
Got it. Okay. So at this time, the city council is going to go into executive session. According to Government Code, Section 551.071, consultations with attorney on matters in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct. Are we sure this is the right one?
Yeah, and then section, the real estate.
Oh, sorry, I didn't go far enough. Okay. Duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly requires discussion in closed session. Section 551.072, deliberations about real property. And so at this time?
And then the item to be discussed,
Oh, and the item to be discussed is the finalization of transfer of assets from WPPOA pursuant to Section 551.072 of Government Code, deliberations about real property.
And then, Mayor, if you also want to go to executive session for another item,
We can do
go
this
at the same time.
at the same time?
Just
Okay.
the agenda.
So we will also call an executive session, which is on item 20 of the agenda, which is discuss city attorney consultation relating to purchase of property for municipal offices pursuant to Section 551.074, personnel matters, and Section 551.072 of the Government Code, deliberations about real property. Yes? Perfect. Okay.
It's just for the record, state the time that.
The time is 9:06 p.m.
Do I turn this off?
Yes. Charlotte will leave hers running. I'm going to turn mine